Hey guys, we are going to add some numbers in scientific notation, which call me weird, but I think is kind of fun, okay? So basically, to be able to do this, you need to know what scientific notation is and how to add decimals, okay? If you need a review on either of those, I will link some videos in the corner for you. But let's go ahead and get started, okay? So when we are adding numbers in scientific notation, these are numbers that are really, really big that we wrote in scientific notation to make them easier to work with, okay? So when we add numbers in scientific notation, what we want is we want our exponents to be the same, okay? Then it is really easy to add them. So as you can see here, I've got one example where they are the same and one example where they aren't, okay? So when they are the same, it's super easy. Guess what? All we need to do is add these decimals, and then we are still times 10 to the 5th, okay? So we're going to add these decimals. When we add decimals, we just line up the decimals, right? So I've got 6.337 plus 2.63, okay? Now it can be nice, I can add a little 0 there so they line up if I'd like to, okay? So I'm just adding these. So I got 7 plus 0 gives me 7, 3 plus 3 gives me 6, 6 plus 3 gives me 9. I just dropped that decimal straight down. 6 plus 2 gives me 8. Okay, so now I've got 8.967 times 10 to the 5th power. And that is my answer, friends. When the exponents are the same, it's super easy, okay? When they are different, there's just an extra step, okay? So when they're different, we need to get them the same, okay? So we can either get them both to be 10 to the 9th or both to be 10 to the 7th, okay? So this is just when you kind of have to think about it a little bit, okay? So I'm going to try to get them both to be 10 to the 7th, okay? So I'm going to change this one, okay? So to get this to be 10 to the 7th, what you kind of have to think is like, okay, am I moving to the left or the right, okay? So if I were to convert this back to standard form, right, I would move my decimal place over 9 places, right? So as I move this, when I move it once, I would have 8 left to move, right? I move it again, I would have 7 left to move, right? So once I get here, I would be 10 to the 7th power. Does that make sense? It's the same number, just we're multiplying it by less, so the decimal moves over, okay? So again, if I were to move this over 9 times, I would get my standard notation, right? If I move it over once, it would be 10 to the 8th. If I move it over twice, it would be that 10 to the 7th, okay? So I'm going to move it over twice, which will give me 317.5 times 10 to the 7th, okay? Those are the same number, just written a little bit differently, okay? And we are adding this 2.27 times 10 to the 7th, okay? Now my exponents are the same, so I can just add these decimals. The only extra step is at the end, we just need to make sure that there's one number in front of the decimal place, okay? We might have to readjust again, but we can do it. So I'm going to add 317.5. I'm still on the screen, right? Yep, okay. Plus 2.27, making sure I line up my decimals. If you want to add a 0 there so they line up nice, you can. Okay, and I'm just going to add these. Drop my decimal point down, 789. Okay, so I get 319.77. And we are times 10 to the 7th power. Okay, but remember, for it to truly be scientific notation, I want my decimal point to be right there, right between the 3 and the 1. So what does that mean? That means I'm moving my decimal to the left 2, okay? Which gets me further from my big number, right? So I would need to move more spots over to get to my big number. So we're going to be back in 10 to the 9th power, Okay, so I'm going to have 3.1977 times 10 to the 9th power. Now, you might be thinking, hey, if we had converted 10 to the 7th power to 10 to the 9th power, we might not have had to have converted. You're right. We might not have. It would have just already been in 10 to the 9th. But we did it to the 7th this time, okay? All right, hopefully that made sense. If you need some examples of subtraction, I'm going to be putting some up of multiplying and dividing as well. I will link a playlist for you. But hopefully this made sense. Thanks. Bye.